problem. Hi, everyone. My name's Saroja, and I'm a community planner with Social Planning Toronto. Welcome to our Housing Deputation workshop. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. You can say your pronouns, your name, and if you are with a community group, you can also share that if you feel comfortable. And just a reminder to please mute yourselves so that we aren't distracting any of the speakers. If you do have questions, we are going to be using a Q&A function, so you can put your questions in there and we'll do our best to address them. Either if they're appropriate to address while we're talking, we will. If not, we will wait till the end. And some of them might be even answered in the Q&A function itself. Mercedes, did you want to just explain how to use that function?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So you should be able to see at the bottom of your screen a list of different icons. One of them says Q&A. And so if you click that button, you'll be able to go directly in and type a question. This is just going to be the easiest way for us to keep track of questions so they don't accidentally get lost in the chat when people are offering commentary. You can also upvote people's questions. So if you have the same question, you can offer a little like, and it gives us a sense to push it up. You can also respond to people's questions too, and we'll be doing our best to monitor it and either answer it in the moment or have a little space to talk it through. If you add questions into the chat box itself as well, I can also move it into the Q&A function to keep track of it. So if you're adding it there, no worries if it's a little hard to find the Q&A function.
Great, thank you. Just a friendly reminder to please keep your comments respectful and just know that we're all coming from diverse lived experiences. So it's just to keep in mind that we want to make sure that everyone has space to feel welcome here. And before we dive in, I also wanted to mention that I'm really excited about this workshop because I care a lot about the right to housing, which is why I'm wearing this t-shirt, which says housing is a human right, which I guess Zoom wanted to blur it out for some reason, but that's what it says. And I'm really excited to have a lot of our some tenant organizers here, community leaders who are very vocal. And I really wanted to thank the partners who organized this event, which are Social Planning Toronto, Don Valley Community Legal Services, the Neighbourhood Organization, Right to Housing Toronto, and Advocacy Centre for Tenants Ontario. Just before we dive into all the other content, I want to acknowledge that this space and event is hosted on the ancestral lands of the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Chippewa, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. This territory is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe Nation to peacefully share resources and to care for the lands and water in this area. Today, Toronto is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and we're really grateful to have this opportunity to learn, share, and grow together. Finally, I want to acknowledge the many broken promises and treaties and the need to work towards reconciliation with the original caretakers of Turtle Island, both in the present and for future generations. I think we still have a long way to go to better understand the Indigenous history of this land. And I'm also still working through what it means to be a settler on Indigenous territory, engaging in housing advocacy specifically, especially in a context where market-driven housing development and speculative real estate are defining how land is being used, valued, and sold. And I don't want to take for granted that I have shelter either. So when I talk about housing, it is important for me to always be reminded of my privilege to occupy and access shelter on this stolen land. Thank you. So moving on to our agenda, we have intros to deputations, a budget process overview, and then Laura is going to tell us a little bit about city programs for tenants from Don Valley Community Legal Services. Alaka is going to be representing the Neighbourhood organization and speak to their neighborhood priorities in terms of the budget. We're really excited to have a resident speaker today from the Residents Council, Samir Syed, who works with both Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park residents. We also have Jonella Evangelista here from Right to Housing Toronto, who's going to share some key messages that you can integrate into your deputations. And those are informed by all the work that everyone has been doing today. And then we will share some tips on deputations and how to register, and then some budget resources. So what is a deputation? It's a really convoluted word. It's actually just means it's a speech or public statement or presentation that advocates for change at an institutional level. So it's really a way to allow you to voice your concerns at City Hall to decision makers, so councillors in this case, and the mayors, of course, so that they can understand your issue more deeply and how it impacts community members. Sometimes this can lead to policy change, especially when there's strength in numbers. So anyone can make anyone can make a deputation. Normally, it's not usually city staff who can do that, but I will say nonprofit organizations, grassroots groups, researchers and academics, community members, unions, and even elected officials from government can make deputations. Why that's relevant is to this workshop is because right now there's an open window for community leaders to make deputations on the city budget. So those can actually help shape policies, and you can advocate to fund services, strengthen support for particular causes, especially housing ones that we're going to be talking about today, and contribute to public opinions on city issues. You also get to speak directly with City Council, which is like a unique opportunity, and your deputation will become part of the public record. So once you do it, it's going to exist in the public record, and you can access it later. This is an amazing young person who did a deputation on saving our libraries back in the Doug Ford era when a lot of services were being threatened to be cut. In terms of the actual budget process, so budget decisions are annual decisions that the mayor and the city council make. So right now, these are some of the most important decisions that council will make all year, and they decide what will be funded if there are going to be cuts and how funds will be raised. So that's also meaning like how these funds are going to impact programs, services, and infrastructure in the city. And we know that city services are so important for residents to be able to advocate on around what city you want to live in. In terms of the timeline, so we had a couple years where with Mayor Chow, where we actually started the city started consultation processes earlier than usual. They call this pre-budget consultation process sometimes. So I'm sure a number of you were involved in those. So those happened in October. And then this past Monday, the preliminary budget was launched. So that budget includes the proposed numbers, the proposed dollar amounts for several programs and services. So SBT does a lot of work to analyze those numbers and highlight where the gaps are. In terms of the timeline, so the public is going to have an opportunity to make deputations on the 21st and 22nd. So that's all of you. I would encourage you to register as soon as possible because those spots are filling up really quickly. There's also telephone town halls that are happening on the 15th, which already happened, and the 23rd of January. So you can also speak up at those telephone town halls. Then we have a final wrap-up meeting of the budget committee on the 24th, and then we'll have the mayor's proposed budget released on the 1st. Between the 1st and the 11th of February, the public still has an opportunity to submit deputations, but those will be addressed to City Council because City Council is going to have the final vote on the budget. which happens on February 11th. So if you miss the 21st and 22nd deputations, not to worry, you can still submit your letters after that to council. So this is, just to reiterate, this is a really important moment where mayor and council will set priority for the city. And community is so important in setting these priorities, which is why we're doing this workshop. This year's operating budget is 18.8 billion, and the 10-year capital plan is almost 60 billion, which is really huge. There's a lot of fancy terms being floated around with the budget, but just to break down, the operating budget covers day-to-day expenses of services such as recreation programs at parks, maintenance, public health services, transit, police, and other emergency services. And the capital budget is really about the city's assets. So there's a 10-year capital plan, and that involves a lot of infrastructural projects such as construction, repairs of transit infrastructure, purchases of subway cars, streetcars, buses, roads, and bridges.
Sorry, Saroja. We're
Yes.
getting a few requests to, if you could speak a little slower, just so the captions can capture everything.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you. So this is a snapshot of what the city heard from their pre-budget consultations. And I just wanted to highlight, surprise, surprise, that building affordable housing and shelters was the top answer for city services that participants wanted to see increased investments for. So why is the city budget an important opportunity to advocate for housing? So the province, we know, a lot of us know, has a lot of control over housing laws and our funding, but the city still holds a lot of power, and it's able to deliver really important housing services, programs, and policies that support unhoused populations and renters. So even though building affordable housing came up as a top priority for investments, a lot of advocates, including, I would say, SPT, believe that keeping or preserving affordable housing is equally important. Some may argue it's more important. And we are losing more affordable housing faster than we are building it. So it's really important to keep that in mind. Our population's growing, our shelter capacity is full, and our wait list for social housing is still it's at 93,000 households. So that's a lot of households. You'll learn a lot more about these programs that the city funds from our speakers today. So I just encourage all of you to speak up during this budget process this year. And just without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker, Laura Anonen with Don Valley Community Legal Services.
Thanks, Saroja. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Oop, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Got a thumbs up. Okay. So hello, everybody. My name is Laura Anonen, and I'm the Community Development Worker at Don Valley Community Legal Services. We are a community legal aid clinic funded by the province, but we do a lot of work with advocacy for our clients. We are located in East Toronto, and our catchment includes the east of Toronto and part of North York. And I'd say about half of our cases are housing law cases. And we only help tenants, we don't help landlords. And our numbers keep increasing. And we do refer a lot of our clients to programs that the city offers. So I'm going to give a brief overview of some of these programs. I'm not getting into the numbers, that's going to happen a little later, but everything's connected. So I'm going to take you through some things now. So first, what's really important to understand is the municipal versus provincial jurisdiction. So in Ontario, the Residential Tenancies Act, the RTA, sets out the rights and responsibilities of landlords and tenants who rent residential properties. What is important to understand is the city really has no control over rent increases, evictions, if you know rent control. So Doug Ford took away rent control on new buildings. Vacancy control is so important. That's when a tenant moves out and a new tenant moves in, the landlord can increase the rent any amount. So these all fall under the province. However, municipalities have a role to play supporting and protecting tenants and affordable rental units, and that's where the City of Toronto comes in. So we have several programs and services here, and I will say I've seen them increase over the years, and we have gotten a little bit more in the budget every year. So our advocacy is working, and we have to continue it. Okay. So the first program I'm going to talk about is Rent Safe TO. We love putting TO on the ends of things, don't we? So Rent Safe is a bylaw enforcement program that ensures apartment building owners and operators comply with building maintenance standards. This is for buildings that are 3 or more stories or 10 or more units. So if you're renting a condo or, a main floor of a house, things like that, you can still get help from the city. It's just through municipal licensing and standards, not the Rent Safe program. So basic to understand, this is how it works. If you are a tenant, I am also a tenant, and I've called 311 for Rent Safe. Let's say you have something broken in your apartment. This is my example. My bathroom ceiling was falling down. So my landlord didn't reply to me after several weeks of me trying to get it fixed. So I called 311 and talked to city staff, and they connected me to the Rent Safe program, and I got connected to a bylaw officer. They came and looked at my ceiling and they issued a notice to my landlord, and eventually it got fixed. Rent Safe is not a perfect program. I have seen and heard about improvements the past couple of years, and it's an ongoing process to improve it, which is why we need more funding. But it does work in a lot of cases. I saw it myself, and I think it's really helpful to have the city supporting tenants when we have difficult landlords. So RentSafe or toronto.ca/rentsafeto if you do want to learn more. There's also more to the program. This is an interactive map on the city's website, so you can look up any apartment building address. You just type it in, and it will give you the score. So Rent Safe staff go around and they evaluate buildings. Again, not a perfect system. There are flaws, but we are working with city staff to improve these, and we continue to advocate for a better program. But it's something, and it's useful, and you can check the score of your building or a building you want to move into potentially. Yeah, and so it's really important that Rent Safe continues to get increased funding because it's such an important program. Next up is the Toronto Tenant Program, TTSP. This was formerly known as the Tenant Defense Fund. So what's happened now is the city has this giant chunk of money, and different organizations can apply for it. So right now we have our friends at the Federation of Metro Tenants Associations, the FMTA, and they run a ton of services here. They have their free tenant hotline. They provide outreach and organizing services. So let's say you're in a building and you're going through an above guideline rent increase. You can contact FMTA, and one of their organizers can come out and help you and your neighbors. They also host a lot of tenant school workshops and many other amazing programs. There's also the Canadian Centre for Housing Rights, and they provide the legal support of this. So they have lawyers and paralegals that work there. And then the other organization involved is the Center for Immigrant and Community Services, and they also provide a tenant support hotline. They provide multilingual education and information and other workshops and activities for tenants. So this is great. We need more of this. I will always advocate for more funding for programs that help tenants, because the system, again, is flawed, and we see a lot of issues at the landlord and tenant board, and tenants don't know their rights, and a lot of the onus falls on tenants to fight for tenant justice, and these programs are so important in that fight. Okay. I'm sorry if there's questions. I'm trying to view a lot of screens at the same time. If there's something important, just yell it out to me. Okay. Next slide. So next one is the Multi-Unit Residential Acquisition Program, or MURA. It's a mouthful, I know. Basically, this is a city program started a few years ago, and it supports the acquisition of private market rental housing by nonprofit housing providers. So basically, this is the example here. There was this building with 20 units on Gerrard Street East in our legal clinic's catchment area. And the city worked with St. Jude's, a nonprofit, to buy the building. And now these affordable rental units are preserved, they're protected, the tenants get to stay there. This is a super important program because we've seen so many renovictions, demevictions, if you've heard of those, happening, and they're just growing, these numbers. Mira helps the city work with nonprofits to purchase these buildings at risk of being sold, where a new landlord could just evict everybody or demolish the building. And so, yeah, we need to expand this program. Properties right now, only properties with 60 units or under are eligible. I'd love to see more buildings included in this. Our legal clinic, we have Flemingdon, Thorncliffe, Pape Cosburn, a lot of these very dense tenant neighborhoods. And the Ontario line goes right through our catchment in these neighborhoods. And we are predicting a lot of gentrification and demevictions, a lot of mid to high-rise buildings that could be targeted for demeviction or development, things like that. We need to preserve them. We are losing too much affordable rental housing, so we need more funding for the MIRA program. Okay. Next up, eviction prevention in the community, EPIC. This is a program that helps tenants at risk of homelessness who are facing eviction to sustain their tenancies. A lot of the legal clinics, we work with EPIC staff to help save people who are about to be evicted. They also provide wraparound services for people to prevent them from even getting to that point of eviction. Good program, again, also needs more funding. Just from the legal clinic side of things, sometimes we also struggle to get help for our clients with EPIC, and it's another program that could be expanded. And then, of course, my favorite topic, renovictions bylaw. This is something our legal clinics worked on for about 5-6 years now, and we got the win last year, and this is amazing. The new bylaw comes into effect July 31st. So there's still this period now where renovictions are still able to happen. So the city said, hey, here's some more funding for the Toronto Tenant Support Program to help prevent renovictions, which is great. We need that funding. And also, for those who don't know what a renoviction is, it's when a landlord says they need to renovate the unit and the renovations are so extensive they need the unit vacant and they'll evict the tenant. And this is legal under the Residential Tenancies Act. So what's happened is, since the province won't do anything, municipalities are taking action. Hamilton passed the bylaw last year. Toronto passed one last year. More cities are looking into this. We need funding to make sure this bylaw is as strong and effective as it can be, which means we need city staff. We need funding for tenant programs to help tenants know about the bylaw and their rights. So yeah, this is so important, and this would not have happened without the advocacy of tenants and organizations. And again, it just goes to show what our efforts can do and why deputations are so important. Okay, those are the programs I am going to talk about. And my key takeaway here is to keep advocating. As I just mentioned, we have seen it work and it can continue to work. So that's all I'm going to talk about right now. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was really informative. It's really good to be reminded of the programs that the city has to offer for tenants. I'd like to now introduce Alaka from the Neighbourhood organization to talk about a little bit about the priorities that you're advocating for as well.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much for inviting me to this. We have been in this housing support services sector for almost 35 years. And I personally have experience for over 22 years. And I have seen, how the situation from 20 years to now has worsened. And of course, we had to get involved in a lot of advocacy work. And as we saw the changes in the community, the changes in policies, we also saw that what never changed is the need for affordable housing. However, we all know that, affordable housing stock is limited and it takes time to build. So how can we address the current need with our advocacy within those limitations? That's what we focus on. And, speaking to our clientele who are very frustrated, of course, you all know that, they come to us, they say, you are funded to do this work, but you are not doing anything. So it's very challenging for us. So we identified that what might work the best is housing allowance programs, because it takes time. People have been on the waiting list for 15 years, they're still waiting. And there is no affordable housing. So we have been advocating with the city for housing allowance programs so tenants can get, a chunk of money every month to supplement their rent. You all know that the city already has, the COP program, but is there anything else that can be done? So there is the rent supplement program, which is that maybe you know about that too. People who applied for subsidized housing, if they live in an apartment building, they might be eligible to, because people don't necessarily want to move from the area that they are comfortable with. So the rent supplement program allows landlords, private landlords, to partner with access to housing and let tenants pay rent, get the subsidized rate while living in that building. So we have advocated for that as well, but it's up to landlords if they want to partner with that program or not. So housing allowance is our top priority given the current circumstances, and the COP program is it closed for a while, but I think it's active again, but still it's a closed program. We cannot tell our clients that you go and apply for it. They can't. So that's the challenge with that program. Also, many of you may know that we are an access center for rent bank. So, preventing eviction is one of our mandates. So we provide eviction prevention and housing stabilization services. So we have seen that many, we work with, let's say, 500 applicants in a year, but only 100 of them become eligible for rent bank grant because they do not meet the eligibility criteria. So we advocated with the city to, relax those eligibility criteria, which the city did to some extent. So the numbers are a little bit, going the income criteria, the income threshold was, increased and things like that. A lot of other changes have been made, and we will continue to advocate for that as well. But we are glad to see that the numbers are increasing. More people are being eligible for the rent bank grant. And of course, housing stabilization, housing maintenance is one of our goals. And how can we support people in doing that? Because we serve with a huge, you all know, that huge newcomer community who may not know about their rights and responsibilities. So just not knowing that you have to pay your rent on the first of each month, or whatever time you agree with your landlord, they may be at risk of being evicted. So information, referral, all of these things are very important, connecting them with other services, helping people with their housing application, for which we need more funding in our housing service hub. So that's another area that is our priority, to get more funding, to get enhanced funding so we can support people more, because our resources are not enough to support this huge community. Every day we see 10 to 15 clients who come in for housing support, and we get phone calls from 10 to 15 people, and how can we support all of them, and with our support, I'm sure many of them would be able to stabilize their housing. So those are the three areas of priorities that I would say that, of course, we will continue to advocate for affordable housing as you are all doing. Yeah. So, thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alaka, also for pointing out some of those gaps in the programs. And I hope we can keep advocating for rent bank funding and easing that eligibility for it, as well as housing allowances and even housing help centers. Thank you. And I know you have to go early, so I just have one quick question is I wanted to ask you, in terms of the rent supplement program you were speaking to, do you know the actual title of that program, the name of the program that the city calls it?
Rent supplement.
Rent
It's
supplement.
called the rent supplement program, but it is part of subsidized housing. So
Perfect.
to access that, applicants have to have a subsidized housing application with Toronto, and they have to add to their preference list those buildings that
Okay.
could accept tenants.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, so for just for everyone else, like we're gonna do the Q&A at the end, but because Alaka is leaving early, I was just asking her that question briefly.
Thank you so
for
much
your
for this
time.
opportunity. Great to see you all.
Absolutely.
Take care. I will leave
Bye.
now too. Take care.
Awesome. Next we have Samir Syed, who's a resident speaker with the Residents Council at Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park.
Yeah, thank you, Saroja. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on this forum and allowing me to present, the residents' point of view. So, just a brief background. I have been a tenant, a resident at Flemingdon Park for over 8 years now, and so I've seen, a few years before the pandemic and a few years after the pandemic. And in this area, I have seen a huge kind of change. The speed of change or the magnitude of change in our community has been very overwhelming. uh, before I come to tenants specifically, what I would like to emphasize is the demography. Thorncliffe Park, Flemington Park, there's this neighborhood has been quite a lot in the limelight recently for several reasons. We had the rail yard coming up, or which is being built just in Thorncliffe Park. We had the science center which was shut down, closed last year. And we have two major railway lines or train lines being proposed. One is the Eglinton LRT. As we know, it's been going on for years now. And we have the new Ontario line, which is being proposed as well, which goes through the neighborhood of Flemington Park and Thorncliffe Park. Now, what's happened is because of these changes recently, the area has been a big, hot, red hot kind of focus for the developers and the builders. And every developer wants a piece of this booming neighborhood. uh, we keep hearing about new high rises coming up, with the facilities. In fact, I mean, the way I see it is the number of high rises being proposed in the neighborhood is inversely proportional to the facilities that we are having, because the science center is being taken away, but we have multiple stories coming up. It shouldn't be working like that. From tenancy perspective, I mean, I'll start off with a couple of personal experiences. I mean, I think the biggest thing what I have seen speaking to my fellow residents and neighbors in the community is that there is lack of knowledge. Most of the people in the community are immigrants who are newcomers to this country. Not necessarily everybody is a refugee. Personally, we came on a work permit over here, for example. But then even despite having a good background, everything, there's lack of information of how to proceed things. 311 rent safe Toronto, these are new things which we learned quite late. I mean, I personally learned them quite late. We didn't know what to do, and in most cases we just stay quiet and hope things sort out themselves. And the tenants generally in this community feel if you don't trouble the landlord too much, maybe you will be safe, maybe you will not be renovicted. There's a sense of fear in the community. But what I think we need to really understand is, if you are doing the right things, you have rights as a citizen, as a tenant, as a resident over here. So we shouldn't be afraid of that. In terms of personal experiences, what I've seen is that the constructions and building which happen, if I start with that, there is no, you don't have a say as a tenant, like, when it starts, when it ends. You're basically given a notice. I mean, we had our balconies, changed. It was right in the middle of the pandemic, and kids were working, like kids were doing online school. I was working from home, and the sound made it unbearable to, work. You couldn't participate in meetings. And the way I used to work around is literally on WebEx. There was an option where you can actually get the WebEx call you on the cell phone. So the laptop would be at my apartment, but I would be downstairs, in the in the lounge room or some other room, and taking a call from there, and constantly praying I'm not asked for a comment, so that I don't have to unmute, and all the background noise comes in. And it's things you have to improvise and work around, because the disturbances. And as I mentioned, there is no fixed time limit. I mean, the landlord may say the work would take 3 months, but even if it takes a year, like, you just have to live with it. Same with Rent Safe Toronto, as Laura highlighted. It's an excellent program. I strongly advocate for it, and it is a must. I can't emphasize the importance of it. But one thing what I've seen personally is that there is no SLA. I mean, even in Laura's example, you can raise a request and then you hope. You just hope. Okay, they will action on it. Is a week enough? Is 2 weeks enough? Do you have to send a reminder? There's no SLA around it. If it's urgent, it has to get fixed. You basically raise a request, and then you uh, hope things get sorted out. Uh, from the community perspective, what I've also seen majorly impacting, just as a case study to give an example, residents of Thorncliffe Park Drive. There are three buildings, specifically in Thorncliffe Park Drive: 71, 75, and 79 Thorncliffe Park Drive. You can actually go and search online on Google or any website. And these three buildings have been, in the limelight over the last couple of years for above guideline increases. As I mentioned initially, that the developers in the community, want access to, this is a booming area. The rail lines will improve accessibility to downtown and other areas of the city. So what's been happening is, the general theme what we have heard from residents is that uh, the landlords make improvements to the common areas. They'll have a fancy painting in the lobby, or they'll have the gardening developed, nice flowers or everything set up. Improvements happen outside the apartments, not inside the apartment. So it's more about make the flats, make the buildings appear nice and clean, welcoming. And that is used then as a reason to increase the rent. So we all know we have provincial guidelines, but just the reason I mentioned these three buildings, 75, 71, 75, and 79 Thorncliffe Park Drive, the residents of that building have been going through a nightmare, over the last couple of years, because the landlords have applied for AGI increases. We had the provincial guidelines was 1.2% and 2.5% in 2022 and 2023. However, what the landlord had done was they applied for, uh, in addition to these minimum guidelines, they had applied for 4.6 and 5 point, I think 3 over the 2 years. Now, many individuals in these buildings, as I mentioned, are newcomers. They have a fixed income. Many of them have limited earning capacity. So this announcement just came as a complete shock to them, and people didn't know how to react. Some people decided to organize a group, speak with the landlord, but that was never encouraged. So they had to take out rallies, everything. And then, in the guise of some tenants started paying the same rent based on provincial guidelines, some withheld the rent. But at the end of the day, everyone was served with a notice for an eviction. So it's basically driving them to a state of desperation where they can't really, they feel they have no voice. And all these hearings are normally at the courts, are at the LTB, are individual hearings, not like collective hearings. So again, the objective is to take them one by one, instead of allowing them to be united and stand together. uh, Currently, thankfully, the district court has put a stay on AGI, and it's being heard over there. But this is just one example, just to highlight what challenges the people face. It's basically either you pay up or you move. Because in what I've seen is that, for example, in the same apartment building, a two-bedroom, let's say two-bedroom house kitchen apartment, the rents, if you want to move in as a new tenant in a flat, the rents have doubled in the last 5 years, and I'm not exaggerating it. Like in my in my building, 5 years back, whatever was the rent for a new flat, and if you go in today and ask them for a new flat, it's doubled. And that's why the existing tenants, even they fear, moving out is not an option. You just live and adjust and try to survive here. And people with young kids, people with older parents living together, it's been a huge challenge. So I definitely hope in this budget process, tenants and renters are given priority, and we have resources being made available for them as well. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Samir, for shedding light on what's going on in Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park, especially when it comes to the challenges that you're seeing on the ground. I'm sure a lot of people in this room can resonate with those challenges as well, and hope we can all put our heads together and continue to collaborate and advocate on the issues that you spoke to. Thank you, Samir. And now we will call for Jonella Evangelista with Right to Housing Toronto to give us a quick overview of some key messages that you can use in your own deputations, and feel free to adapt them as well.
Hi, everyone. So as Saroja mentioned, I'm Jonella with Right to Housing Toronto, and it's a group of network of individuals and organizations that support the implementation of the right to housing by the City of Toronto. If someone can share some of the slides, okay, that'd be great. I just want to say it's been great to be able to hear from tenants, and Samir, for you to be able to share your story. I think we really recognize the different ways or the different housing challenges and how they've impacted folks. So collectively, us along with our partners have developed some key messages. And this can be used to advocate for more funding and improvements to the budget, specifically around housing and tenant impacts. So in this year's budget, sorry, one second. Yeah, in this year's budget, it is promising to see funding towards housing, and this includes new and enhanced funding directed towards renter supports, such as Rent Bank and EPIC and TTSP. But we understand, especially hearing everyone's stories, that more funding is still needed. And we do have another document that shares a bit more of the in-depth analysis of the budget that can share some of the figures. But here we've kind of created key messages at a high level. And you've heard a bit about the city housing programs and initiatives from Laura and Alaka. So I'll go through several key messages that we've developed. And depending on really how you've engaged with these housing or renter supports or the housing challenges that you experience, some of these key messages may resonate with you more than others. So to start off, we created a key message around renter supports, and this is really to emphasize increased funding for programs supporting renters, reflecting the needs that you have all shared. And so you'll see in the main box, we've included the key message, and then below includes kind of those detailed asks specific to housing programs. And a few of the speakers have already addressed these programs, and we really recognize that there is a need for it. So although there is some funding in the proposed budget for it, we want to see more. We need more renter supports. And just to note for the Toronto Tenant Support Program, we want increased funding for TTSP organizations, and that was a 3 that Laura had highlighted to deliver these legal supports, as well as enhance tenant outreach, education, and engagement activities. And we see that the city really leans on these TTSP agencies to provide support, or is leaning on these agencies to provide support around the new renovictions bylaw, as well as the multi-tenant housing framework, as well as these ongoing tenant issues that we've all heard of. And so further funding beyond what is already imposed in the budget will go a long way. as well as the ask to have to expand this funding to more community organizations to provide services as well. So if you do have any questions on some of the detailed asks, you can definitely ask them and we can have further conversations, but these key messages are here for you to refer to. Next slide. Oh.
Sorry, something got out of order, but we will get to the messages in a second.
No worries. Yeah, so that one. So the next key message that we developed was really around housing benefits, subsidies, and social housing. So we want to be able to emphasize for the city to invest in social housing for residents to live in secure and affordable housing, as well as provide housing benefits, prioritizing the communities most in need. So we did hear from Alaka about the portable housing benefit, so I won't go too much in that, but if folks are familiar with the Canadian Ontario Housing Benefit, that is something that we do see as a great benefit, but we want to see something at the city level. So we're really urging the city to create a program to provide these portable housing benefits to Toronto residents. And prioritizing persons experiencing homelessness, survivors of gender-based violence, and Indigenous peoples. Additionally, we really want to see the city prioritize and invest in rent geared to income social housing. And this is through the Toronto Community Housing and Toronto Senior Housing, where I think in the beginning of this workshop, we heard a lot of issues around long wait lists as well. So this is an investment for the city to make, and we're really urging them to do so. Next slide. So our next key messages are really around affordable housing preservation. So as what was mentioned by speakers, the city's stock of affordable housing is dwindling, and we know that it is more expensive and timely to really build affordable housing than it is to preserve the existing affordable housing that we already have. So this is why this is really important, and we want to emphasize here an increased funding to key housing programs aimed to preserve affordable housing as well as protect security and stability for tenants. So this is also through the multi-unit residential acquisition program that Laura had referred to. We want to see increased funding for MURA, especially because it is recognized as one of the city's most successful programs, as well as one of the most efficient ways to address the housing crisis by purchasing these at-risk private market rental housing. And this is to secure homes as permanently affordable nonprofit housing. So it was great to hear Laura speak of the example on Gerrard Street, and we need to see more of that. And as Laura mentioned, expanding it beyond, I guess, the criteria, the 60 units that was mentioned. Additionally, I do want to point out around the multi-tenant houses. So that is also known as rooming houses. And those are really, we want to see the increased funding for the MTH renovation and repair fund to support operators to come into compliance with the new framework. And this is really towards preventing tenant displacement for some of the most marginalized individuals in the city. We understand that rooming houses are one of the most affordable housing options for folks. So we want to also see an increase in funding to support enhanced outreach, education, and supports for MTH tenants as well. Next slide. And then lastly, around our key messages, again, to affordable housing preservation. This, we want to see increased funding to hire new city staff to support the implementation and monitoring of the following housing policies and programs and enhance tenant outreach and education. So these additional staff also closely tied to some of the city's new housing or policies, such as the renovictions bylaw and the rental replacement policy. We really want to see additional staff additional staff and funding to for the renovictions bylaw to support the implementation of the new rental renovation license program. And along with additional staff, we really want to highlight the need for comprehensive public education and communication strategies. I know Samir also highlighted the need in terms of tenants being able to know their rights. So especially as new housing policies come forward from the city, we want to ensure that there is education and outreach around this as well. And then I also want to highlight, I know Rent Safe TO was previously mentioned, and this is something we want to put forward the ask around hiring additional inspectors. So this is included in the city budget, right, or in the proposed budget. But as folks have mentioned, there are still times where you're waiting for inspectors. So ensuring that these programs are adequately staffed to provide these tenant supports and that policies are enforced is something we want to highlight in our key messaging as well. So these are some of the high level key messages that we've developed and we did want to share with folks, as well as a more specific ask around each of the housing programs as well. So understanding that there are several key messages, you really are encouraged to identify the housing issues or the messages that are most relevant to you. And as you share your own lived experience and the impacts of them in your deputations, I think that's what really that's what helps share the impact and gets across to the budget committee and to the folks at City Hall that you're deputing to as well.
Thanks so much, Jonella. And I just wanted to add that the rental replacement policy is for tenants who are facing eviction due to demolition. So like the group No Dem Evictions, for example, are advocating for city staff to ensure that developers are meeting their agreement to adequately replace the units that displaced tenants are facing. And yeah, I think we're super excited that these key messages are out in the world. And thank you, Jonella, for going through this comprehensive list. And we encourage everyone to use them. Thank you. Amazing. So we are going to do another quick whiteboard activity just before we go into the other content. Mercedes, if you don't mind sharing, that would be great. So before we dive into deputation tips, I'd love to ask everyone, what do you want to include in your deputation on housing? This is just a free brainstorm. Feel free to draw from the messages that you heard from Jonella, the inspiring speakers that we heard today, your own challenges with housing that you shared at the beginning, anything really that resonates with you around housing. All right. So I'm seeing some pretty amazing answers already. Pricing, number of room for single person, separate laws for corporate buildings, wait times, landlords who are abusive, lived narratives from community members. Someone said preserve affordable housing, Catholics. And someone asked in the chat, are we supposed to speak or write out the sticky note? If you want to share your answer on audio, you can unmute yourself right now if that's easier for you, if you have any access needs. No worries. Yeah, so this was just a really quick activity to get people to start thinking about how they want to prepare for their deputation if they are making a deputation. And there's really no like correct, right or wrong way to do it, but there are some good tips that you can follow, which I'll get into in a second. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your answers. Because we have to move on, we're excited to share your sticky note activity at the end as a follow-up as well in the email. All right, we will move on.
Maybe we'll just give 1 second if it's okay, just for folks to finish their sentences, and then we can close it up.
Yes, that sounds good.
Yeah, and
Well,
to the point also, if you want to continue to offer your thought, please feel free to. Otherwise, I think there's still one comment being finished. Sorry, Saroja.
oh yeah, and you can, even if the whiteboard's closed, you can still write your answers in the chat and we can add them in afterwards. So.
Okay, we'll close up the board for now. And as mentioned, if you want to keep adding, just feel free to add that in the chat.
Great. Can everyone see the screen okay? Yes, okay.
Everything is perfect. Thank you.
All right. I hope that my computer does not seem to be cooperating, but okay, here we go. So we are just sharing some information on how you can register for the budget committee deputations. So you can actually either register to speak in person, or you can also submit you can submit a written statement, and then the other option is you can join virtually, just the way you are with this meeting, and they'll send you the WebEx kind of info on how to do that. There's also a phone option as well. So essentially you can join many different ways. This is a new thing that came out of the pandemic, and I think it's a really great development for civic engagement at the city. And make sure that you send your counselor your deputation if you can, and let them know what let them know what you're deputing on, because if they support it, then they might help amplify your message during your deputation. So in terms of actually preparing for your deputation, there are a lot of different opportunities to depute in person. So this is a huge list of all the locations that are offering deputations. So they're going to happen at North York Civic Center, Scarborough Civic Center, Etobicoke Civic Center, and City Hall. Unfortunately, there's 2 City Hall time slots that are full, which are the ones in gray. So I just encourage everyone to sign up as soon as possible. I think Anna's might be able to share, or someone is able to share the information on how to do that, but we will at the end as well. One thing to really keep note of is the city has, they use this formatting, and it's basically an agenda item. You'll see it in blue. So it says 2025.BX 5.1. So when you're registering to depute, if you can name the agenda item that you're wishing to depute on, it's highly encouraged. So for example, if you're going to depute at the Scarborough Civic Center over here from 9:30 to 12:30, and you want to request that time, it's good to say, I would like to depute on this agenda item, 2025.BX 5.1. And we'll share these resources afterwards. In terms of the budget committee, so the budget committee this year is made up of these counselors, Councillor Carroll, Councillor Perks, Councillor Chang, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Moyes, and Councillor Morley. Some of these counselors might actually be your counselor, which means they have a lot of power in terms of making budget decisions. So highly recommend to reach out to them if you can. And these are the counselors that you'll be speaking to when you make a deputation in person and virtually. We're providing a template here that you can use when you email the clerk. So when you register, you'll have to email the clerk, and their email's right here at the top, buc@toronto.ca. Your subject, you'll have to say what day you want to depute at, location, time, and agenda item. And it's always good to explain which time slot you would like to depute at. So be as specific as possible, because we know that this is a time where like the city staff are kind of working around the clock, and they might not be able to get back to you as quickly. So as much information as you can give them, the better. So just in terms of speaking to the committee, you will be called on when it's your turn to speak, and then you can unmute your microphone if you're on video. So yeah, you will most likely get to speak on audio only. I'm not sure if the video is going to be activated for this process. They could have changed that, so don't quote me on it. Your video is actually going to be available, your deputation is going to be available on the YouTube live stream for City Council. So just so you know, you will be on the public record. And you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Sometimes you might even have less than that if there's a lot of deputants for one time slot. So keep your deputation short and sweet. And after you've spoken, sometimes counselors will ask you questions. Don't feel intimidated by that. Sometimes they just do it because they like putting people on the spot, or they're trying to get an answer that they want to hear and that they can help amplify, or they want to get an answer that they can deny too. That's another thing they like to do. So I would just say, don't worry about not knowing the answer to their question. You can just say, please, you can say, I'll get back to you on that. And once you finish speaking, you want to remute your microphone and disconnect. So this is an example of what the audio deputations look like. Like when you join virtually, you'll have a timer. You see the timer, so you'll know approximately how much time you have. And then for written statements, it's best to submit them as a PDF document, and you can also include your text in the body of an email as well. And yeah, like I said, just make sure you send your counselor a copy if you can. In terms of the content, so I would suggest, if you can, really speak to your lived experience. So like the first thing you want to do is introduce yourself, hopefully what ward you're coming from, and the main objective of your deputation. And then you want to talk about your own personal life and how this issue relates to the challenges you might be facing and the needs in your community. And then you really want to focus your deputation on what the city can do, what the city has power to influence. So for example, you probably wouldn't want to say, we would like the above guideline rent increase to change in terms of the percentage, because that's something the province decides. But you could say, we would like more funding for MIRA, which is the multi-unit residential program, or we would like more funding for the renovictions bylaw so that it's effectively implemented. Those things are delivered by the city. So if you have any doubts, you can always email your draft to us, because we will be providing deputation support, as I will mention a little later. And just try to focus on 1 to 3 recommendations. If this is your first time, especially, it might be stronger to just focus on a few. And lastly, you want to build your case. So if there are any services or programs you think need more funding, you should mention that, because this is the time to talk about funding. It's a city budget. If you have any strategies or policies you want to influence, you can do that, but that's usually done after the budget. And then make a really strong recommendation at the end of your deputation if you can. You can always draw from data that exists out there, analysis that's already out there, as well as any messaging from community groups or coalitions, grassroots groups such as Acorn or No Dem Evictions. And if there are any gaps that you notice in the budget, you can also speak to those. A gap would be, let's say the city promised $1 million for the tenant support program last year, and then they only provided 500,000 this year. You could say, well, how come we're not getting another 500,000? You can point out certain gaps in the actual budget if you'd like. And yeah, you can feel free to use specific numbers if you want. This is just an idea of the structure that you can follow: intro, body, conclusion. Pretty basic for a lot of people. And then you also want to make sure you practice as much as you can. Maybe bounce off your deputation off a friend, or practice it in front of the mirror. Speak as clearly as you can. That's a good reminder for me, because I'm